Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first actual episode of The Drink Up Here. I don't know if anyone has listened to that teaser we put out last week just to get everybody real excited about it, but we are here for our first real episode, drilling down into some rugby content. My name is Zach, and I'm here with my pal Colby. Colby, how you doing? You have a good weekend?
Zach, man, it's great to hear you. Yeah, I had a great weekend. And guys, if you didn't listen to that teaser, what are you doing here? Go listen to that teaser and then come back. Just kidding. You can stay. I was going
to say, press pause immediately on this. Go back, listen. It's only like 4 minutes. You got plenty of time. I had a good weekend. I didn't get to watch that Lions Springboks test live on Saturday. I was at a wedding, but I avoided Twitter all day, and then I watched the replay on Sunday. So it was a nice conclusion to that test series over there. So that was my weekend. But I'm excited to talk a little bit about rugby here today too, Colby. I don't know if you have thoughts on that game, but.
So I want to know, did you get it spoiled?
No. So luckily, I was like, you know what? I'm at a wedding anyway. I'm just going to keep my phone, out of the equation. I'll just keep it in the pocket because usually I'm on Twitter whenever I have 2 seconds of free time. If I'm bored, I'll just hop on and scroll. And I knew I would have seen it immediately. So I was off my phone all day. I didn't get it spoiled, thankfully. I had no idea who was going to win. I saw a couple. Thank you. I saw a couple tweets that were close to giving it away, and then I got scared. I thought I had an idea going in, but it seemed to me like the Lions had won when I was on Twitter. But then it turned out obviously South Africa did, so that worked out great. I think that'll be my strategy going forward because it's tough to watch rugby when it's happening over here in the States. The time difference is a little out of whack,
and that's not easy to do. Not having a game get spoiled for you. I know I've been on the wrong end of that multiple times, whether it's other people spoiling it for me or just seeing something on my phone pop up. So job well done, Zach. Job well done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was very proud, happy that it happened. And we will hopefully, not have anything spoiled for us going forward. You see that attempt at a transition there when it comes to the MLR Draft, which is what we're going to be focusing on in our podcast today, in today's episode, and in the next coming days, leading up to the actual draft on the 19th. But first, I think we should talk a little bit about some news and notes. We're going to try and make that a segment in the podcast as well going forward. Get some, news of the day at the top of these to keep everybody, updated on what's going on. Not much happening on the college front, Colby, but today the MLR did release their first, second, and honorable mention All-MLR teams. So you got any thoughts looking at those rosters? A lot of big names on there, a lot of really solid talent in the league this year.
Yeah, really exciting to see those names come out today. We had 3 teams, 3 All-MLR teams release. I want to say what stood out to me was the fact that 10, and not like it was a surprise or anything, but 10 LA Giltinis were selected between the 3 teams, between their fly half, Ghetto, Harrison Goddard, Adam Ashley Cooper. They were all in there, sprinkled in amongst the teams. Andy Ellis and Dan Holland's head Rugby United New York were in there. You saw Nate Brakeley, I think, in the first team MLR for Rugby United New York. So it was really, I was kind of surprised not to see, I have to say, Connor Mooneyham out of Austin, the Austin Gilgronis squad, not make one of the teams. But he is a rookie, and there were a lot of great back players this year between Mika Cruze. You could pick out that made the second team All-MLR. He was a wing on the second team All-MLR squad, and so he had a lot of competition, but Connor Mooneyham, definitely a player to watch moving forward in the MLR. But yeah, those teams, very well deserved for a lot of those guys. Those guys had hell of a seasons.
Yeah, you know what shocked me? The only Gilgroni on any of those rosters was Bryce Campbell on the honorable mention squad. Very anti-Austin decisions. I think Connor Mooneyham definitely, had a good shot at making at least one of those rosters. He played a great year, especially like you said, as a rookie. Maybe just didn't get enough game time. I know he had the injury later on in the season, but the other one for me, so Sandy Fungi from DC. On the honorable mention, I thought he maybe had a bit of a better season than Dylan Fawcett. I know that might be sacrilegious to say. I'm in Jersey, so I'm right across the river from New York, and I might they may come over with pitchforks. But he had a great year for DC. Then up playing with the Eagles as well in those couple tests they had. But nothing against the Butcher. But I thought Socini Fungi had a great year. At least he made the honorable mention team. That was good for him as well. But after that, Socini Fungi, talking about Socini Fungi, a great young talent, young player in the league, chock full of them. And there's about to be a huge influx of talent with this second MLR draft coming up. The first one held last year after the pandemic canceled the season. It was the first draft ever. They had 2 rounds. This year it'll be a little bit different. Eligibility rules are similar. Just to run through some quick background about what the draft actually is. You have to be enrolled in a U.S. or Canadian university or college. This is actually the first year they're opening it up to the Canadian universities and schools. Because obviously with the Arrows, there's a lot of really solid Canadian talent in the league as well. So I think that's a great thing for them to have done for this. You have to have completed 3 years of college or be at least 21 years of age as well to be eligible. Now, they are this year waiving the rule that you have to have played or be a registered college rugby player from the previous season, because obviously that was not the case for many people. It's tough to get any sort of game time in the fall, especially. Anything you want to add on draft stuff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had the first MLR draft last season. We're starting to see a few new things implemented this year with the Rugby Showcase, especially. And I know that Chris Mattina, the Rugby United New York back, he is spearheading, or actually did spearhead the back session for that showcase on Saturday. And it's well-deserved for Chris Mattina, who himself developed his own developmental program for young athletes, young rugby athletes, whether they're in high school, college, or in professional as well. He developed this sort of brand to, help develop their games. And he's a guy that is known for being very versatile, a back that does pretty much everything on the rugby field. So he knows what he's talking about, but that's exciting. It'll be interesting to see, what they look like, because obviously these guys haven't played a full 15 seasons since 2019. Will there be rust? Are they going to be the same guys? Will they have the same skill sets? There's going to be a lot of questions to be asked of these players. So that showcase is going to be very telling, I believe. And hopefully we can get Chris Mattina on the podcast for a conversation soon for a little inside scoop on what the guys looked like on Saturday.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Chris about that. I mean, I would love to also start seeing those streamed or televised in some way, like the NFL Combine is, like that. I think I love just in general, take a bit of a step back. I love the idea of the draft, for the MLR. I think it's a great way to grow the fan base, especially here in the U.S., because it's something that people are accustomed already to seeing, in their other favorite sports from the States. So it's something that they understand the concept of, they can latch on to. It's not like a wonky tradition of the game, that you'd have to play rugby to know about. It's a pretty straightforward concept of okay, these are the best guys, and you pick who you want on your team, and you go through the same round concept. So having the draft is great, and then having these skill showcases, kind of like mini combines, super cool. Yeah, so would love to have Chris Mattina on to talk about that. Hopefully later in the week. So we're going to get into our kind of 3 main takeaways. The big news on the draft lately is that the deadline for applying or for declaring yourself for this draft ended last week on Friday. So we have a set number of players. It's 124 players in this class from 86 different schools. So a really solid group. It's much larger than the group I think they had for the draft last year. And, because of that, they're saying there's going to be at least a minimum of 3 rounds in this year's draft. Last year, they only had 2 rounds. That was it, with each team obviously going, once, or unless they had a trade going a couple times. But they'll have at least 3 rounds this year with the possibility for more, depending on how much talent there is. But anything else before we get into our kind of 3 observations here, Colby?
Yeah, just what I said before, it'll be intriguing to see how these players come back after the long layoff and what kind of skill sets they have. Are they going to be the same type of player? Have they added anything new to their repertoire that scouts and teams should be aware of? it's going to be a very exciting process.
Yeah, so as I said before, 86 different schools it represented here in this draft. But Colby, let's get right into kind of our main three takeaways each. And for me, my number one, like I said, 86 different schools. There's one school that stands out in that list, and that is Lindenwood. They are the highest represented in this draft class, most eligible players, on that list. I believe there's eight of them, eight players from Lindenwood, including obviously this year's Schultz Award winner, Manuel Albert. So they have a lot of guys that are going to be available. There are not many schools that have that number of players eligible at all. Penn State has five. I think they're closest. Life, you're seeing another top program has four. So I don't know what that says really about the talent that Lindenwood kind of had amassed for this year. This might have been, their year to make a push in the 15s level at the college game. They dominated in sevens in the spring, both men and women's. Once games started playing again, that they ran riot through a lot of teams in the sevens tournaments. But they've never really been able to get to that final level or cross that final threshold at the 15 side of it. They've been in the semifinal a few times, haven't been able to get to the championship or win a championship. It's kind of a bummer. This might have been their year in 2020 with all this experienced talent that's now going to head to the MLR. Does it leave a huge hole in their roster for next year? Do they have enough kind of young guys on that squad to fill those holes? A lot of big shoes to fill. Like I said, Emmanuel Albert, huge shoes. They're going to be missing a lot of talent on that team.
For sure. And I have to just comment that in 2019, Iona, my alma mater, did play Lindenwood in the College Rugby Championships in sevens, and they did not run us over. We were actually very much in that game, up 7-0 at halftime, and only lost by a couple of points. So we were right up there with Lindenwood that year, who ended up going on to win the entire thing.
Right, we couldn't leave with that. Yeah, obviously, I have to clear that air. I wouldn't want anyone to besmirch Iona's name like that. My apologies.
No harm, no foul. As far as my first observation that I want to mention, I want to talk a little bit about a player out of Kutztown that has entered the MLR draft, and that's Aaron Gray. He's a dynamic winger that has been a USA All-American. He's played on the big stages in the College Rugby Championships for Kutztown. He plays on the 15 squad. Great stepper, great speed. Played with DeMonte Noble, who had a minor breakout season for Old Glory DC, you could say. And I mean, he's a guy that, you look at what DeMonte Noble was able to do. Aaron Gray is a very similar player. I don't think he's as dynamic as Noble is, but he can do a lot of the same things that Noble does. And I think that's intriguing for a lot of teams. And it will be intriguing for a lot of teams in the draft. So I expect him to go relatively high. And if he doesn't, I mean, he's going to be a guy that a lot of teams are going to wish at the end of the day that they selected.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a little bit more about kind of some like favorite players later on. As we get closer to the draft, I kind of want to do like a mock draft as well. But this seems like a really great talent coming in there. Great. We've seen in the MLR. The wing or like the outside back kind of position is where you can make an impact if you've got the skills. You mentioned DeMonte Noble, had a great couple games for Old Glory DC. The big one, Connor Mooneyham, coming in and wowing right away on the outside. So sky's the limit, for anybody who can come in and kind of be an athlete out there. What would you expect from him? Like do you think he's someone who starts right away and gets drafted by a team and it kind of makes an impact immediately?
I would expect to see something similar to what happened with Noble, not starting right away, but, sticking with it. I'm assuming working hard in practice and eventually, just fighting his way into a starting spot at some point in the year in which he took advantage of. And I expect that to happen with Aaron Gray. He's the type of player that, like I said, he's not going to be on the top list of a lot of people's boards, I don't think, but he has that dynamic playmaking ability that's so rare. And so I expect to see, him just grind out a spot for a team and eventually get his opportunity. And once he gets his opportunity, I don't think he'll let it go. So he's a player to watch for me.
It'll be fun. He is from DC himself, Aaron Gray. It will be interesting to see if Old Glory selects him and he can pair him with Demonte Noble maybe at the wing spot. Would be a great combination there. I would love to watch some of that.
Ooh, dynamic duo. Old Glory DC, are you listening?
Yeah, are you guys listening? I don't know if they're listening in now, but if their talent team is there, um,
I know
but yeah.
Utah
So
doesn't listen to me, so I know that's a fact.
by the end of this, once you
Anyway,
establish, once we establish the drink up out there, the coaches will be calling you for sure. They'll ask, they'll want to know. Uh, but so you mentioned, yeah, the wing position. That's one that last year was drafted pretty heavily in the opening rounds. Again, it's somewhere where like you can see that instant impact. My second observation from this prospect class and just heading into the draft here,
mhm,
the scrum half position is hugely represented in this incoming draft class.
mhm,
They are tied with wing for like the highest number of eligible players who declared that as their position. With 16 each. Again, that doesn't necessarily lock them into that position. Obviously, when they get into MLR,
right.
we saw Patrick Madden was not listed as scrum half, when he entered the draft and was drafted by San Diego. Ended up playing a couple games there this year, but scrum half at the Major League Rugby level is a position that has a lot of talent in those spots, in those starting spots already on rosters solidified. You talk about Danny Tusitala, who came out hot this year, Harrison Goddard on the LA Giltinis winning, Soma Andy Ellis with Rugby United, even Nick Boyer in Houston, I think, had a great year. Those spots are very solidly stocked with guys. So I'd be interested to see how many of these scrum halves get drafted this year. How many guys who are coming in with that specific skill set either get picked or B get picked and come in and start right away. I can't imagine there'd be many. Zero scrum halves, like I said last year, drafted at all. So there were two that were picked up after the draft. Rugby United picked up Connor Buckley, and then Tom Brusati went to New England. But nobody picked on scrum halves last year because that's a tough spot, Colby. I think to kind of make an impact right away. It's a very technical position. You really got to have a sense for the game. So that just stood out to me. So many 16 potential, scrum halves looking to join the league. We'll see how many of them, get that shot.
Even a guy like Connor McManus, he made his first appearance on the wing for Rugby United New York. And so that's a good point that you make. Not all of these guys, a lot of these guys may not play scrum half once they get into the league, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. So what do you got on your mind, Colby, for your second one here?
Yeah, just in terms of the rugby showcase, I find that very interesting. Piggying back off what I was talking about a little bit earlier about the long layoff from 2019 and players not being able to obviously have an official 15 season in 2020 because of the coronavirus. This rugby showcase is going to be huge. It's going to be a great way to see where players are at as far as their skill sets are concerned, anything that they might have added to the repertoire or not. And so that's something that's going to be on my mind, how these players have looked in this little combine that we had on Saturday. So
I think that's a super cool concept. Again, I hope they continue that and publicize it even more. And I want to see Colby, like, how Rich Eisen runs the 40 every NFL combine. Like, do you think you could get out there and just run a 40 in like a full suit like Rich Eisen does, and we could time it and see how you stack up?
I don't want to embarrass the kids. I don't want them to go into the league with no confidence. I don't know if I'll do that, but hey, we'll see. Maybe I can get out there and do a little something, but I won't run the 40. I'll just blow everybody away.
Right. It's
Won't
for
get
the
there.
kids. Yeah. You don't want to. Yeah. Again, you don't want to crush their dreams right away.
No, not yet, not yet, not yet.
That's fair. All right. That's fair. So my third and my final observation here, just looking ahead to the draft coming up, it's kind of a cheap answer. It's not about any particular like player or anybody in this incoming class, but last year you saw a couple of teams, Rugby United and Houston specifically, trade away both of their draft picks in rounds 1 and 2 of that draft for
Yep.
international player slots. Basically saying, yeah, well, like we get it. Like you got a lot of young talent coming in here, but we'd much rather have spots on our roster available for kind of established international guys to come in. And I think that that worked out well for Rugby United. I'm not again, I don't know exactly how their contract situations worked out. I couldn't say specifically that Andy Ellis was somebody who they were able to bring in because of these expanded, the expanded number of international slots that they had, but they really got by with some well-established talent, and they were still able to pick up Connor Buckley, who they liked before the draft. He wasn't picked by another team, so they kind of scooped him up later on afterwards. But I'm interested to see this year, because some of the guys that got drafted last year had such a huge impact, in their first year in the league right away, whether or not teams are as willing to kind of sacrifice those spots. I think when it comes to like salary cap stuff, the international guys obviously are going to end up costing a little more. So if you could get a day one contributor in a draft like this, would you be willing to give that up? So no trades as of yet that I've seen reported, but Colby, interested to see if anybody, tries to make any moves like that this year, or if they kind of stand pat everybody and try and get a piece of some of this, young talent coming out of the college game.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue against not standing pat to try to get a piece of some of these young talents, especially if they're a guy like Connor Buckley, who's from New York. You're getting a guy that's homegrown. You're getting a guy that can contribute right away. I know Connor Buckley didn't get too much playing time right away, but he's a guy, like you said, we saw plenty of rookies that had that immediate impact. And if you can have that chance to land somebody that might be from your city, that might, have some sort of connection and passion for playing for your team, and plus they can be a contributor right away, I don't see how you pass that up.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the argument, right? Is a lot of, there was the thought last year heading into the draft, like these guys coming out of college are not going to be ready to step into the pro level game right away. And you saw that not a lot of the props that got taken. Ended up playing Brian Nault. I think it was drafted, I think second overall, and he played some minutes. But it is a bit of a transition, I'd imagine. But it seemed to go really well for a lot of these teams. And now, when you're looking at someone like Houston, do they kind of want to, get in as many international guys as they can to try and bolster that team that struggled this year? I don't know. Maybe it takes a team like Rooney, a better established team that has a lot of, solid players already. They can take some more time to develop these guys. All right, Colby. Yeah. So what is your final thought here before we start wrapping things up on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, man, this was fun. Glad to get our feet wet with this, but yeah, really excited for this draft. I think as a player, or as someone that was playing rugby last year and was actually thinking about entering the MLR draft myself, it's cool to see a bunch of new up and coming young guys get their names out there after such a great season that we had in MLR. Glad to see the league back up and running, after everything that we've been through in this world. And so I just can't wait. I just can't wait for more rugby, and can't wait to talk more rugby with you, Zach.
Same for me, Colby. I can't wait either. I would have to mention, off the back of that, if there was something like the MLR in a collegiate draft, like maybe I would have gotten in better shape when I was in college. Like probably not at this point, thinking back. Like I like wings too much, so I probably would not have gotten into any better shape. But who knows? If I had something to strive for, I was like, wow, I could see getting my name out there and playing for a pro team in the States. Could have been a different story, but for now, I'll have to just sit with the fact that I scored one try, I think, in my 4 years. So, and that'll be my glory days.
One try, you can't. Don't underscore yourself. That one try is a try, nonetheless. It's a try, nonetheless.
Exactly, a try is a try. So yeah, pumped to talk more rugby with you, Colby. We will be back later this week with, as we mentioned a couple times, we teased it a little bit. Chris Mattina coming in. Maybe we'll talk a little draft prospects. Before the draft, we want to talk, our thoughts on kind of last year's draft class and their impact on the league. We do want to talk about some of the specific guys that are coming into this draft this year. Like I said, maybe a little mock draft action happening. So plenty of great content coming your guys' way on the Drink Up Pod. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Rate us, whatever you got to do. We'll be on YouTube. We'll be on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be everywhere you can find us. So, Colby, take us out of here, man.
With that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in to the first episode of the Drink Up Podcast. We'll be back next week, maybe in a few days, maybe tomorrow. Not sure, but we'll see. We'll be back with more content, though. That's the point. We'll be back with more content at the end of the day.
And please check out our other segments, including our Major League Rugby show, our Global Rugby Recap, What Are the Odds?, our Major League Rugby Sports Bet show with the Philly Godfather, John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE legend, and Gifty Bailu, Martial Law, the Zach Attack. And please sign up for our American Red Cross Rugby Wrap-Up Blood Donor Team.